Hey Peculiars, I'm Amanda, the Peculiar Brunette, and today we're going to be talking about different types of witches and how you can find the spiritual path that works best for you. Oh, and before I forget, if you think that labeling your witchcraft or spirituality is stupid, that's totally cool. Move along. This video is not for you. This video is designed to provide a brief overview of the many different types of witches and give you an idea of elements that you can incorporate into your practice. Don't forget to hit the like button below and sign up for our Magical Monday newsletter so you can stay updated on all things peculiar. Let's get started. Today I'll be discussing the benefits and disadvantages of choosing a type of witchcraft, how to figure out what type of witch you are, and an overview of 29 different paths. Check out the description below to jump around to the paths that interest you most. Anyone from any spiritual background can practice witchcraft, and the different types of witches are as diverse as each practitioner. Remember that your spiritual practice is unique to you, and your path will evolve and change as you learn and grow over time. You may identify with a specific direction now and develop an interest in another one later, and that is completely okay. If you choose a type of witchcraft now, please don't feel like you have to include every single aspect of it into your practice. It's okay to not enjoy or include every aspect of it. Feel free to mix and match and customize them to your liking. You can also choose to be happily unlabeled because labeling your magic is not required, and some folks find it restrictive to their practice. What's most important is that you feel safe learning and practicing your spirituality without judgment or fear. So 5 benefits to choosing a path. 1, it can help you reconnect with your spiritual side and notice the magic that surrounds you every day. 2, it allows you to focus on your specific path and become more knowledgeable about everything surrounding it. 3, labeling your spirituality can help you organize your thoughts and understanding about your craft or practice. 4, it can feel quite powerful, liberating, and help you connect with your authentic self and really help you get to know yourself better. 5, helps you discover how you can blend your magic into your everyday life. So pretty much the main reason and biggest disadvantage to choosing a label for your practice is that you might be limiting yourself. By discounting other paths, you may miss out on parts of your spirituality that really do resonate with you. So remember to stay open-minded as you progress throughout your practice and don't box yourself in unnecessarily. As many of you know, I identify as an atheist pagan, but I have some cottage and shadow witch tendencies in my practice. But again, this has changed over time. So when trying to decide what type of witch you are, start with your hobbies and interests. What are you curious about? And what do you enjoy learning about more in detail? What do you nerd out about? What does your intuition naturally draw you towards? And then you can start learning, reading, watching other spiritual practitioners on YouTube. The library can also be a fantastic resource to research for free. And the books don't have to be about witchcraft. You can check out topics on different cultures, herbalism, foraging, art, crafting, dreams, divination, crystals, folklore, history, self-help, goddesses, or whatever fascinates you most. If you start to feel overwhelmed, take a break, because this is meant to be enjoyable, not stressful. You will soon start to hone and discover your unique path. Remember, you'll probably ebb and flow between a few of these throughout your life. So just because you work towards one particular path or approach now doesn't mean that you can't change or alter it later. Most importantly, just get started and try it. Don't be afraid or don't be overwhelmed with analysis paralysis, guilty, or be afraid to be a beginner, because everyone starts somewhere and you can be more than type of witch. Bev at the Witch's Cookery and the Witch of Lupine Hollow have some really awesome suggestions as well, so I'll link their videos below. All right, so let's jump into the first type, Green Witch. Green witches are sometimes referred to as garden witches and are among the more popular types of witches. They feel strength and power from nature, and it plays a massive part of their spiritual practice. They're in touch with the seasons and deeply connected to the earth. Green witches appreciate nature's healing influence in their daily life, and they get their magic from nature. They prefer to do their spiritual workings and rituals outdoors when the weather permits, and they add in positive intentions and sigils when planting in their garden, and can often be pretty devastated when a plant dies. They often love to garden in alignment with the phases of the moon. The second type of witchcraft is called an eclectic witch. Eclectic witchcraft is also another very prevalent type of witchcraft, which is why I included it here early on. It's someone who basically enjoys identifying what beliefs and ideas make sense to them, and they're happy to adapt it to their practice accordingly. So eclectic is a term that derived from the Greek verb that means to select, and it was first given to philosophers who were not dedicated to a particular path or field of study. So simply put, these types of witches integrate many different magical techniques and utilize those that they connect with most. The third type of witch is called a kitchen witch. So a kitchen witch believes the kitchen is the heart and soul of the home and a perfect place to incorporate magic and basically cook with love. They frequently include witchcraft into their meals and devote large amounts of their attention and time into the food or concoctions that they prepare, although not always. These witches are incredibly concerned about the quality of ingredients that goes into their food and believe that the kitchen is a very sacred space. A kitchen witch's energy and strength exists in their emotional intentions that they place into their food and spell work, and can actually be a pretty cool way to incorporate witchcraft into your everyday life. The fourth type of witchcraft is called a solitary witch. Solitary witches prefer to practice alone and do not need to be initiated into spiritual practices or covens. Some solitary witches are introverted and enjoy silence and the privacy of practicing on their own by themselves. Others might still be waiting for a group or coven that they genuinely connect with. And similar to an eclectic witch, a solitary witch may mix and match traditions, rituals, and spiritual beliefs. There are even some folklores that claim solitary witches are old souls who have reincarnated, and their power and wisdom fully awaken when they mature, so they don't require help or assistance from other spiritual practitioners to incorporate into their practice. It's kind of cool. The fifth type of witch is called a cottage witch. A cottage witch is sometimes called a hearth witch, and they incorporate magic and spiritual meaning into their home. I identify with this one a lot. These types of witches love a cozy atmosphere and spending time in their home. A cottage witch loves surrounding their sacred space with magic and protection. Cottage witches want to make their home feel safe, sacred, and comforting. Gray witches typically incorporate left hand and right hand paths into their spiritual practice. This can sometimes be referred to as destructive and constructive magic, respectively. So I do want to jump in here and give a really quick note. The terms white and black magic should not really be used. It's not really a modern day, usage, because there's obviously clear and negative racial connotations with those terms. I'm going to use them here just because gray magic is typically described. It came to its origination as a term of the mix of black and white magic. But like I said, you want to use the terms like left-handed path or right-handed path or constructive or destructive magic. So I just wanted to make that note here because I think that that's important when discussing gray witches. So gray witches greatly value magical and spiritual balance, not only in their craft, but in their life. They are neutral. The secret to becoming a gray witch is to basically keep your power in balance. Gray witches recognize that to be whole, they must embrace both positive and negative energy into their practice. So the 7th type of path is called a hedge witch. A hedge witch works between the spirit realm and the physical world through like a trance or like an altered state of consciousness. They often utilize magic while working through the veil, possess some sort of clairvoyance, and share many similarities with shamanism. The spiritual path of a hedge witch can be a pretty eclectic one, but generally they enjoy utilizing local herbs, incorporating their ancestors or spirits, and a mediumship of some kind. Some hedge witches incorporate Germanic or Druid beliefs into their practice, but that's not required. Hedge witches are sometimes confused with green witches because they love herbs and nature, but they're different. They often work alone, but occasionally you can find them in a coven or group. Number 8 is a sea witch. Sea witches feel a strong connection with water and the sea and honor the special bond between the land and sea. These types of witches take pleasure in working with the element water, obviously, but are not required to live by the sea. I know a lot of people think that, like, well, I don't live by the sea, how can I incorporate it? So they can work with any kind of water like lakes, streams, ponds, rivers, or you can also simply put a jar of water on your altar. Oceans can be pretty chaotic, and some sea witches thrive by incorporating this chaos into their magic. They also really enjoy learning about like water ecosystems and how we can decrease pollution in the ocean. So the 9th example is a religious witch. They're often referred to as ceremonial witches. They typically follow a strict, systematic approach to magic and will often incorporate a god, goddess, spirit, or deity of some sort into their practice. Instead of working with nature, like herbs, the seasons, tree magic, etc., religious witches often invoke their deities or spirits into their magical practices and derive power from rituals and ceremonies. You can often find religious witches in a coven, grove, or group where beliefs and rituals are kept concealed and secret because they believe that this holds their magic even more powerful and sacred. Religious witches prefer magic that is based on ancient teachings and enjoy an older form of magic in their practice. Religious witches typically strictly adhere to ancient beliefs, but occasionally they may mix and match to develop their practice. So there are a few different types of religious witches. I'm just going to go over some of the main ones here now. So Hellenic is a path that typically worships the polytheistic gods and goddesses of ancient Greeks like Zeus, Aphrodite, Athena, etc., etc. Some practitioners will also incorporate Roman gods and goddesses, but it's not necessarily, exclusive. Another type is called Satanic. Typically, most do not worship Satan, and most consider themselves atheists who view Satan as more of a liberating icon. Satanists will often blend beliefs like and satanic symbols like the sigil of Baphomet into their craft. Another type is called Voodoo, which is an Afro-Haitian religious closed practice that blends West African, I think it's pronounced Voodoo, religion and Roman Catholicism into their practice. Another type is called Thelema, which are witches who incorporate Aleister Crowley's beliefs and ideas, which again are rooted in ceremonial magic, pretty intense ceremonial magic, and Egyptian ideas and rituals into their practice. Santeria is another closed practice that originated in Africa but flourished in Cuba and expanded across Latin America into the United States. Santeria focuses on connections with the Orisha deities, I think is how you say that. Sorry if it's wrong. Christian is another type of religious witch that blends Christianity into their witchcraft practice, and they worship God and Jesus and include that in their practice. There's Celtic Druids who concentrate on Celtic and Welsh gods and goddesses, lore, traditions, earth magic, and basically a deep connection to nature. Sometimes you'll see them incorporate the Celtic alphabet, ohms, and tree magic into their spirituality, but again, it's not required. Norse pagan is another path that typically worships ancient Germanic gods and goddesses like Odin, Freya, Thor, Loki, etc. Norse pagans sometimes are called heathens and they practice heathenry. They can include a variety of different beliefs and can sometimes incorporate like the Elder Futhark runes into their spirituality. Wiccans are one of the last religious witches I'm going to talk about. Wicca was created by Gerald Gardner in the early 1950s. Well, it was like official in the 50s. And these are beliefs from Aleister Crowley, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and other Western witchcraft traditions. Wiccans typically worship the goddess and celebrate the wheel of the year. Wiccans worship nature and follow the rule of 3, which specifies that the energy or magic that you release, either positive or negative, will come back to you times 3. Wiccans adhere to the Wiccan Rede, quote, "and ye harm none, do what ye will," end quote, and do not typically perform hexes or curses. Wiccans also can follow specific paths, like that can even niche down even more, like Gardnerian, Alexandrian, and Dianic, and they all have different degrees of initiation. Quick note here, I just want to say you do not need to be Wiccan to practice witchcraft. That is a commonly misunderstood concept, so I just want to reference that here really quick. So next we have a moon witch. Moon witches are sometimes referred to as lunar witches and center their witchcraft around the moon phases. These types of witches are very self-reflective, intuitive, and in touch with their emotions. Family and friends are often pretty shocked by a moon witch's precise, intuitive insight. It's almost as if they are psychic. Moon witches gather strength and magic from the moon and the dark, glittering twilight of every night. They also tend to enjoy working with the element water and working with overall the subconscious mind. Number 11 is called a sun witch. Sun witches are sometimes referred to as solar witches and incorporate the sun's power into their magic. These types of witches are often wildly optimistic, very bright and cheery, outgoing, ambitious, and like pretty energetic. People are naturally drawn to sun witches and trust their knowledge and insight. Sun witches feel revitalized by the sun and are constantly in awe of its strength and power. Number 12 is called an elemental witch. Elemental witches center their spiritual practice around the 5 elements of fire, air, water, earth, and spirit, and they deeply enjoy nature magic. Some Wiccan practitioners incorporate the elements and their corresponding cardinal directions into their spell work. Most elemental witches include all of the elements into their practice. However, during different points in time, they might choose to focus and hone specific elements that they may feel called to at different moments throughout their life. It can sometimes take years for them to be fully knowledgeable in all 5 of them. Number 13 is called a swamp witch. Swamp witches instantly bring to mind Misty Day from American Horror Story. No, just me? Well, maybe it's because she's my favorite. Swamp witches are sometimes referred to as bog witches. Swamp witches are pretty unique, uncompromising, intuitive, and often use raw or like organic elements like mud and herbs in their craft. They're really less concerned about complicated rituals and instead try to do what works best for them. These types of witches tend to be pretty introverted and typically practice in solitude and prefer the company of animals and maybe even a few scaly creatures. Swamp witches love connecting with the earth and are deeply passionate about being as natural as possible within their practice and really within their everyday life. Swamp witches deeply understand the connection that we all have to each other on this planet and sometimes feel a really overwhelming responsibility to protect nature and its creatures. Fairy witches are types of witches that understand the diversity and complexity of the Fae. A fairy witch connects with the Fae and sometimes incorporates Irish or Scottish culture into their practice and channel their power and magic from nature. Fairy witches are often charming, introspective, intuitive, animal lovers, and feel comfortable embracing chaos and mystery in their practice, which you'd have to do if you're working with the Fae. Fairy witches feel connected to woodland areas and often leave regular offerings to the Fae to help thank them, for their help. Some fairy witches believe they used to be Fae and have traveled between worlds to be reborn as a human, which is kind of fun. I kind of like that idea. Next, we have cosmic witches. They're sometimes referred to as astrology witches and always feel the power of celestial energy within their practice. These types of witches incorporate astrology, astronomy, the planets, constellations, and other cosmic aspects into their spiritual practice. Some cosmic witches sometimes feel out of place here on Earth and feel as if their souls once resided on another planet or constellation, which is called a starseed. Number 16, a divination witch. Divination witches are sometimes referred to as augury witches and often work with spirit guides, ancestors, or through the veil and have many similarities to shamanism. These types of witches are healers, spiritual counselors, energy workers, and they bring positive changes into the lives of those who consult them. Augury witches live in harmony with nature and often obtain knowledge from the spirit world. While divination witches are not fortune tellers, they do enjoy incorporating divination practices into their magic, which can be through various techniques like scrying, omens, sacred signs, numerology, meditation, pendulums, casting things like bones, ohms, runes, working with astrology, symbols, tarot, and many other practices. Number 17 is called a crystal witch. A crystal witch understands the healing power of crystals and will find ways to infuse them into aspects of their life and practice. These types of witches know that the universe is made of energy and each crystal has its own power and vibration. They understand that each crystal was made directly from nature and put a lot of care into finding ethically sourced crystals that they can use in their practice. So number 18 is called the secular witch. Secular witches do not worship any deities, gods, or goddesses in their spiritual practice. They may also refer to themselves as the skeptical, like the skeptical witch, Sarah. They might also refer to themselves as atheists, agnostic, spiritual, or non-religious. Secular witchcraft can vary and is unique to each practitioner. These types of witches are often drawn to science, psychology, and history, and they prefer an experience-based form of spiritual practice over what they've read or have been told they have to do. Secular witches tend to find deep meaning and sense of self inside their spirituality and incorporate it basically into every aspect of their life. 19 is called an urban witch. Urban witches feel a strong connection with their local city area or town and enjoy modern conveniences. I think urban witches often get overlooked by more nature-based practices, but really it's a pretty cool form of spiritual practice. These types of witches are often more city-focused, community-minded, and enjoy engaging with peculiar and unique people in their area. They enjoy exploring all the sacred spaces, metaphysical shops, and artistic or exciting spots in their city. They can feel the energy of the city and they include it in their magic. So number 20 is a literary witch. They love books, reading, poetry, writing, and basically all things literature. Literary witches are sometimes referred to as word witches, and they enjoy incorporating letters and words into their magic. These types of witches love libraries, I can relate, and can often be found spending a day off just browsing the shelves. Literary witches love studying different types of witchcraft, myths, lore, and other esoteric topics. Maybe a few peculiar ones too. Number 21 is a forest witch. Forest witches have a lot in common with fairy witches due to their interest in woodland creatures, tree magic, and incorporating earth spirits, which could also possibly be like fae if they choose to, into their practice, but there are some differences between them. These types of witches often believe in animism, which considers locations, objects, trees, water, creatures, etc., to all have an essence or soul and are alive. They often incorporate folk magic and local legends into their magic. Forest witches prefer to practice rituals in the solitude of the forest and away from prying eyes. They have no fear of the forest and will often wander through it anytime, day or night. They are wild at heart. Forest witches believe nature and the universe binds us all together. So a music witch loves incorporating music, obviously, into their spiritual practice and will use it to enhance their spells or intention work. They utilize instruments, sounds, or their own voice to shift their mindset and raise their vibration. These types of witches weave really powerful intentions and spells as they sing them into fruition. They feel the physical effects of music and find it really empowering. Music witches are often pretty emotional and empathetic people and love using their spiritual practice to help heal others. Their strong connection with sounds will compel them to use various techniques like chanting, singing bowls, vocals, drums, and other instruments. I can't think of any other ones. Music witches know the impressive effects that frequencies and humming can have on the body to help reduce stress, lower blood pressure, and sync their vibrations for inner peace. They will also incorporate the power of music manifestation through positive affirmation work in their everyday life. Number 23 is called a Chaos Witch, which I love. I have a fondness for Chaos Witches. They use their intuition, ideas, and many different types of magic in their practice. They're very result focused and prefer to practice uncomplicated magic. Due to this, they often have their own ideas and techniques that can really vary between practitioners. So as I explained in the sigil video, word sigils began with the English artist Austin Osman Spare, and his development of the Zoskia cultus, I think is how you say that. Spare's ideas later became the basis of Peter Carroll's work, who expanded his ideas to formulate chaos magic as we know it today. According to Peter Carroll, in the Octavo, A Sorcerer's Scientist Grimoire, quote, a competent magician should have the ability to stand still at a bus stop with closed eyes and have the entire universe disappear apart from a single blazing visualized sigil or muttered spell, end quote. Personal beliefs and traditions are never created in chaos magic because what worked in the past might not yield the same results today. Chaos magic's core idea is that belief is the most influential aspect of spiritual power. Chaos witches do not ask the universe for spells and intentions to materialize. Instead, they force it to do so. These types of witches do not care about traditional techniques or methods and only focus on results. They love weaving a variety of spiritual, pagan, and witch symbols into their practice. A shadow witch is sometimes referred to as a nocturnal witch or death witch. They create relationships with the dead and incorporate shadow work into their magic. They have no problem with the dark aspects of life. Think Lydia Dietz from Beetlejuice. I myself am strange and unusual, and enjoy being very mysterious. These types of witches enjoy magic and spell work during the dark moon phase. They love its dark and quiet and secrets. They believe there is much wisdom to be found in the shadows and the stillness. Shadow witches love the complexity and passion they weave into their spirituality and magic. They have no problems working with bones and graveyard dirt, and you'll often find it on their altar. Number 25 is a Techno Witch. I often get a lot of crap for talking about Techno Witches because a lot of people think that if you incorporate electronics, computer devices, whatever, into your practice that actually goes against your practice. But, you know, I really believe strongly that whatever it is that you resonate with most is really important to include in your craft. So if you really love using technology and incorporate it into a lot of aspects of your life and you find it easier, do it. Who cares? Techno witches, they embrace technology by incorporating it into their spiritual practices and rituals and are sometimes known as cyber witches. They love mixing older traditional techniques with more modern tools and ideas. These types of witches use various apps for astrology, note keeping, connecting with the moon phases, and more. They're constantly at the forefront of computer innovation and technology. Techno witches often have many similarities with urban witchcraft, since they love to incorporate more modern practices into their rituals and spirituality. They often believe their devices have an essence or spirit and are alive. Desert witches love the desert, obviously, and incorporate its magic into their spiritual practice. They enjoy the scenery of the desert and often will live nearby. These types of witches often will utilize natural desert elements in their craft, like bones, sand, rocks, and cacti. They deeply respect the desert's ability to survive in harsh conditions, yet still maintain its beauty. Desert witches are very tenacious and strong and often flourish in simplicity. They notice the allure, charm, and small details of the desert that other people often overlook. It's pretty beautiful. Number 27 is an art witch. Art witches are sometimes referred to as craft witches, and they love to add their artistic abilities into their magic and spirituality. I really feel like there's a witchcraft joke in there somewhere, but I'll spare you the pun. These types of witches weave intentions, spells, and magic into their artwork. This can be with journaling, painting, sewing, illustration, needlepoint, woodworking, basket weaving, wood burning, thrift flips, home decor projects, or any other creative project they're inspired by. Crocheters or knitters will also incorporate knot magic into their handiwork. Simply put, art witches are very creative and full of imagination, and they weave their magic into their artwork. Natural witchcraft is a pretty sensitive topic and will often start arguments in the witchcraft community. Whether you believe that you are born with witchcraft abilities, think that you can learn them, or maybe a mixture of both, here's an overview of what a natural witch is. These types of witches practice magic instinctively and always seem to know exactly what to do. Natural witches tend to be empaths and are very sensitive to the feelings and emotions of those around them. Some of them are naturally able to read auras as well. Natural witches have a deep bond in nature and will pick up on its shifts, changes, and moods pretty quickly. They're often able to predict the rain, storms, or other weather patterns. The last type of witch we're going to talk about, number 29, is called the Hereditary Witch. They're sometimes referred to as ancestral witches. Their paths have been learned through guidance from their elders or other family members. They often come from an ancestral or cultural line of witchcraft, and they're born into their practice. Their spiritual practice can be as unique and varied as their ancestral line and will often incorporate some form of folk magic, including their ancestors' grimoires, oral history, and traditional spells and rituals. Some will mix old traditions and new traditions, and others will avoid it, preferring instead to stick with what has always worked for their family. These types of witches often practice their magic concentrated in a local area or sacred space. Hereditary witches feel that witchcraft is a unique talent and skill that is passed down through the generations. They will guard this knowledge and keep it secret from anyone outside of their hereditary line. I've even heard of instances where they won't share it with someone who's married into the family. It will only stick to the bloodline, which is pretty interesting. I hope that you found this video helpful. Please feel free to ask any questions below. And remember, as always, stay peculiar and become more knowledgeable about it. Ozzy, you have to pick in or out, bud. You can't be both. You can't be in and out. That's silly. You think it's not silly? I don't know what I'm saying. What am I even saying? Today I'll be discussing this today. And remember, now, oh, I see what happened there. A hedge witch. Shadow witches love the complex. Chaos magicus. That's not a word. Number 26 is called a desert witch. I mean desert witch. Desert witch would be the coolest type of witchcraft. I definitely want to be a desert witch. Let's do that. That's a new thing. Get it together, Amanda. Get it together. And diabolicism. Diabolism? Diabolism. I don't know.